the whole issue now of any more introduction of GMOs should be stopped immediately, because we have seen what has happened with the introduction of GMO canola and GMO soybeans, how it has destroyed the indigenous seeds and pure seeds. We no longer have any pure canola seeds or soybean seeds left in Canada. It is all now contaminated. And if you look back at Monsanto's history, to me it's been a history of deceit and of not telling the truth. When Monsanto and other companies said PCBs were safe, DDT was safe, Agent Orange was safe, aspartame was safe, and after a few years everybody found out the dangers of PCBs and DDT. And now we have the same company telling us that GMOs are safe.
For years, Vandana Shiva has observed the threat to biological diversity stemming from the policies of multinational seed and chemical giants. This gave her the impetus to purchase, with private funds, a piece of land at the foot of the Himalayas in northern India, and to found Navdanya, an experimental farm. Without using any chemicals, only with organic, sustainable farming, she collects, breeds and preserves old seeds which have been displaced from the fields since the introduction of the monotone chemical agriculture in the 50s and 60s.
In January of 2002, the new scientists announced a new miracle for India. Scientists in India, along with companies of course, had worked out the potato. And they wanted to solve the protein problem by putting genes from this plant, the amaranth, which is very, very rich in protein. The grain amaranth has about 11 milligrams per 100 grams. Take the genes for protein from this plant and put it into the potato. And the potato that will be genetically engineered with genes from amaranth is actually going to leave you with nutritional scarcity, because you'll have got rid of the calcium producing content of amaranth, you'll have got rid of the fiber of amaranth, you'll have got rid of the iron in amaranth, you'll have got rid of the taste of amaranth, you'll have got rid of the amaranth. You are writing in the creation of a genetically engineered potato with amaranth gene, you are writing an extinction sentence for God's own grain. The second thing they're forcing, so one is, the first is the very unethical imposition of patents on life, which is to treat life as an invention of man. Life as invention of man. W.R. Gray's case of neem. A company called Rice Tech, Basmati. And the list is very, very long. So anyone can say, I have invented. Second story is, on the one hand, American manufacturing industry has already got a manufacturing...
The big trading nations, Europe and America, are trying to assign their patent thinking towards the third world. That means that naturally growing plants, like the neem tree, or economic plants cultivated for years, such as basmati rice, are suddenly the property of patent holders. Thanks to Vandana Shiva, some of these patents are being revoked after long and bitter lawsuits.
For me, this engagement with genetic engineering and the corporations that are pushing genetic engineering without letting democratic safety systems evolve by extinguishing everything, my passion for fighting really comes from the love for biodiversity. You know, to me, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing hundreds of rice varieties, you know, bean varieties of different colors, those gifts of nature, from the fact that the Indian peasant, for me, has been the embodiment of resilience, of strength, of hope, and that is the soul of India, and that is what is being assaulted by these corporations. The heart and soul of India is under assault. And this struggle for the seed, for the freedom of our seed, for the freedom of our farmers, is to me the same as Gandhi's struggle, his satyagrah, the fight for truth. In this field, my colleague Prithvi, whose name literally means the earth, is harvesting a rich, rich crop of turmeric, haldi, which is critical to our food. Haldi, or turmeric, is an extremely strong natural antibiotic. A few years ago, the antibiotic use of this haldi was patented. And the patent said, buy haldi in your kitchen store. You can buy the haldi in your kitchen store, but it will belong to our patent. You'll have to pay us. The reason they patented it was because antibiotics are failing. Haldi is not failing us. We use it when we have infection. We use it in our cooking so that every day it is protecting our health. It is a beautiful, beautiful Ayurvedic medicine, also a food. In Indian diet, there is no division between food and medicine. It's all one beautiful continuum. And we have other root crops here, the arbi, which we use for wonderful, wonderful vegetables. We have ginger. We have 3 varieties of the sacred basil, the tulsi. This too has been patented. We worship the tulsi in our backyard. Every home in India will have a tulsi pot. And when we worship, we say, in you I will assume the cosmos resides. And I will pay you reverence, to pay reverence to this amazing creation. We use the leaves in winter for coughs and colds. The tea from this, mint tea, is wonderful. This too has been patented. In fact, every 3rd crop in our fields, there's a patent sitting in US patent offices. But for us, this is a freedom zone. We will keep these crops free for future generations.
Welcome back to Green Time. I'm Barb Chicherio, the host, and my guests today are Digger and Don Fitz. I would like to talk a little bit, there are different ways that plants are genetically engineered. We talk about Roundup, and actually soya was engineered or modified to be resistant to the herbicide Roundup. Do you want to describe what goes on with BT? Now that's like BT corn. That's a little bit different process.
That's a pesticide, right? BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a natural pesticide that was used sometimes by organic farmers, sparingly though, and they would sprinkle it on the plants as a last resort if they had trouble with bugs. Well, now Monsanto has developed BT corn. And with this, they took the genetic code from the BT and put it into the corn. So every cell of the corn has the BT in it. So now, whenever you eat that BT corn, you're eating that BT.
And what I remember reading, and tell me if this is right, that BT was actually a listed poison.
It is.
Yeah, and the reason why they did this is because it's extremely effective. I mean, if you have every cell of the plant a poison, that means that the target insect, if it bites anything from the plant, it's going to die. Of course, the problem is that it's not real good for humans to eat the BT.
And so, how much of corn do you think in the United States is now
It's over.
BT?
It's like at 80 to 90%. I've seen figures some higher. This is really in widespread use. And the big problem with the BT is as many of us had predicted, the insects are developing a resistance.
Oh, you know what? I hadn't read that.
Yes.
Or heard that.
This has just been published, these studies. It was in the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
The insects are developing resistance. So what do the farmers do? They have to go back to the even more poisonous
Right, and that's what I heard about Roundup too, that they're actually using Roundup and their old line herbicides. So
Right,
there's
and of
actually
course,
more application of
This is something that had to
poison.
happen because the life cycle of an insect is in weeks or months and not years or decades. So they reproduce very rapidly.
Right.
Only the ones that don't die from eating the BT will be the ones that survive. So now people are exposed to 2 poisons. They're exposed both to the BT poison plus the Roundup. plus
Right.
whatever else
Whatever
the farmer
the
needs to
old
spray
ones
in
that
it.
they're spraying too.
And this after when these products were introduced by Monsanto, their claims were that this will reduce our use of pesticides
Right.
and herbicides in crops,
Right.
and it's actually increased
Right,
it.
and really with the BT, it's just a different way to apply it. It's not. It's not as though there's not any. What about the soil? How does BT affect the soil around the plant?
Well, what happens is that a lot of soil is not just soil. It's not just an inert ingredient, although scientists at Monsanto would have you think that it's just an inert and we put in what we want. Soil, good soil, is a living and has many living organisms in it.
Right.
Well, what do you think happens? BT goes in and kills all those organisms in the soil. And it also other non-target species. You might remember the monarch butterflies and other species that were affected. And of course, this is all part of the circle of life. It comes back to us in ways, and in ways often that we can't anticipate.
So one of my other questions was, how does genetic engineering or genetic modification affect biodiversity? Well, it sounds like in many ways.
Well, in this, that's a soil question, which is really important because it's not just the butterflies. I mean, that's important in and of itself. But when you kill the organisms in the soil, that's the foundation of life is soil. And so that is really reducing the biodiversity in the soil where the field is.
In the segment of the film that we just saw, there was a lot of discussion about seed saving. Monsanto, of course, doesn't want people to save their seeds. They want them to buy them every year. But can you speak a little bit about seed saving and the importance of that?
Right. This is where the use of GMO crops is a very, it's such an essential and basic change in the way of farming. Of course, farming, agriculture developed when people learned how to save seeds.
Right.
When they first discovered that these seeds grow these
And
plants.
that's super important to a whole lot of cultures. A whole lot of cultures have different festivals and different times that people get together to exchange their seeds,
Right.
and different farmers save different ones. And of course, if your crop collapses, like the tomato crop of St. Louis in the summer of 2011, then it's you get seeds from somebody else.
So indigenous peoples and and also family farm operations, it's essential that they save the seeds. And now they have to buy seeds.
We
it
have
costs
to
so much.
stop. This has been a great conversation. I hope we have some more like these. Thank you for coming to Green Time, and we'll see you next time.